Hello, everyone. Chad Kayla, field agronomist for Beck's Hybrids in East Central Illinois. Thank you for joining me today to share some information on our new soybean seed treatment offering for 2026, Victrato. As you can see on the title slide here, I've kept Jonelle Myers on there. She is our seed enhancement lead out of our Atlanta, Indiana home office. She's the one that's responsible for putting a lot of this information together. I'm using a lot of her slides. I have edited some of her slides to share some more local experiences. So as most of you know, within the past 5 weeks or so, there was a new label federally granted for Victrato, the new soybean seed treatment fungicide. We'll get into more details here about what Victrato offers for our growers and for our customers. One of the things I want to start off by saying is that we've probably, in Illinois, including myself, we've probably fallen into a little bit of a trap and maybe pigeonholed this new fungicide seed treatment as being something that only farmers in known red crown rot areas or in that swath where it could be a problem in the near future, only a product for them. And that's really not the case. We really do feel like it's an exciting new product to help improve yields, profitability, and help farmers succeed ultimately. So we'll share some information on red crown rot, but we'll also go into some of the data package on both soybean cyst nematode and sudden death syndrome. So we just start off with a slide like this that's mainly a summary slide, but I've added some information here. You may have seen this before. We've got our 3 seed treatment offerings for 2026 on soybeans across the top on the right side of that table or chart. You can see Escalate Nemasect SDS Plus with dots in the boxes of what products or what active ingredients are in that mix. And you can see the center column, the Escalate Nemasect SDS Plus with Saltro. You can see we're adding chitosan and Saltro to that base package. And when we did that a couple of years ago, when we went from Alivo to Saltro, we added chitosan because if you compare the soybean cyst nematode effectiveness of Saltro against Alivo by itself, Saltro was a little bit weaker than Alivo on soybean cyst nematode. Hence why we added the chitosan to bring us up to the equal performance level of the Alivo when it comes to soybean cyst nematode. See the far right column with Victrato offering there? What we're doing, basically, we've got everything we have as far as active ingredients in the base package, plus the chitosan, but we're just substituting the Saltro ingredient with Victrato. Now, the other thing I think you'll find value in is when you look at this chart, you can see I've put a label next to the active ingredient, whether it be a fungicide, a biofungicide, a biostimulant, an insecticide, or a nematicide. And with some of these active ingredients or trade name products, you can see that they have dual modes of action or dual activity. For example, Victrato and Saltro both have fungicidal properties as well as nematicide or nematode properties. So just to kind of begin here with Victrato, just a little bit of a brief overview. It is a new active ingredient on the seed treatment market, but it really belongs to the same fungicidal mode of action classes as other group 7s. So other group 7s that are currently on the market today would include, from a seed treatment perspective, would include things like Alivo and Saltro. Alivo and Saltro also group 7s, but Victrato offers quite a bit more advantages, as you'll see with this new active ingredient. You see that name Timerium technology at the top there. Timerium is just a name given to a registered trademark name given to this technology, whereas Syngenta could seek label for the same active ingredient but applied, let's say, foliar application, and that would have a different product name. So Victrato is the seed treatment name, and if they pursue a label of this active ingredient with a different method of application, that could be called something different. But you might see the Timerium name kind of tossed around there a little bit, but the name we really want to concentrate on and the product is Victrato. So not unlike a lot of active ingredients in the ag industry, um, it takes a long time, a lot of commitment, a lot of dollars from the research side to get these new active ingredients labeled. You see molecule discovery all the way back in 2008 and the data submission package to the EPA in 2021. So that gives a lot of confidence with a lot of field trials in those 12, 13 years, or basically from 2011 all the way to 2021 with the data package submitted. But what I want you to notice there is look how long it's taken for federal registration ever since the EPA received it, almost 4 years. Okay, the current soybean label for seed treatment with Victrato. You can see at the top there, you got the active ingredient name. And there's two modes of action with this product. It's a nematicide as well as a fungicide, kind of what I showed you in that beginning slide there with the F/N having both fungicidal and nematode properties. But if you look at the protection against the following pests, it does have sudden death syndrome, as well as soybean cyst nematode and other species of nematodes, as well as suppression of red crown rot. The one that's a little bit more intriguing here, which may not be that important for our area, but Septoria brown spot can be a little bit of a yield-reducing pest in our area. Some other fungicidal seed treatment products in the past, including Alivo and Saltro, have had Septoria brown spot activity and have had that pathogen on the label, and just like Victrato does as well for Septoria brown spot. But those are early season diseases, Septoria brown spot is, and really haven't seen much activity on products like this in the past with later season diseases such as frog eye leaf spot. So that's something we'll kind of be watching and paying attention to here in the near future. So let's take a look at crop safety. I think that's pretty important to start off with. If we think back to whenever we were offering Alivo, we did have some years where if we had Alivo in combination with a PPO, especially when planted early, followed by cool, wet conditions, we could see that halo effect and stand reduction on the soybeans. And so on the right side of this picture, that's kind of a reminder of what the Alivo can do. And it says there the SDS rate. That's the rate that we were using at Beck's whenever we were offering Alivo as an option. You can see we've got much better safety early in the season with Victrato. Similar to Saltro, we're not seeing that halo effect with Saltro or Victrato compared to what we were seeing with Alivo. So we don't expect any kind of a halo effect like Alivo gave, and definitely not a stand reduction that we sometimes saw with Alivo. Okay, getting into soybean cyst nematode protection. Again, this is data from Syngenta, the manufacturer and distributor of Victrato, the manufacturer of Victrato. So this is, again, this is soybean cyst nematode replicated field trials. There's a lot of data here. This is 10 years worth of data. That top line there with the stars, that is Victrato compared to a base check. And in this case, the base check would be Cruiser Max Vibrance, so insecticide, fungicide package compared to a fungicide base package with Victrato. And you can see over 10 years and over 120 trials, that 124 trials in those 10 years, 83% win rate with the Victrato treatment when it was added to the base check. About 3.5, a little over 3.5 bushel yield advantage to the Victrato. As we look a little bit farther down there, the next line that's starred as an FLPM, that's fluopyram. That's the active ingredient in Alivo. Significant data package here. That's the 0.15 rate. That's the rate that we were using. That's the high rate of Alevo. 0.15 rate, milligrams AI per seed. 10 years worth of data there, 111 locations, 72% win rate with that advantage going to Victrato of about 2 bushel per acre compared to that high rate of Alevo. Here's additional data on soybean cyst nematode. See here on the left, we're comparing everything to Cruiser Max Vibrance. That's the insecticide fungicide package that's a base. And then moving to Saltro, which is providing about a 2.5 bushel advantage. And then going to Victrato, again, providing another step change advantage over Saltro even. So Victrato giving about a 2 bushel advantage here over the Saltro. And when you compare it to Alevo, significant advantages there as well. Yeah, this is data from Iowa State University, Greg Tilka's laboratory. Dr. Greg Tilka at Iowa State is a nematologist that does fantastic work to help us learn more about nematodes and the fight and the management against soybean cyst nematodes. So just a good lab there to look at some research data with Victrato and over 9 site years. And just to explain site years a little bit, site years could be let's say a PhD student project over 3 years and 3 locations each of those 3 years. That could be 9 site years. So 3 years by 3 locations each year. And if you look at this data package here, a summary of those trials is the left 5 bars of these 9 shows a significant yield increase to Victrato over no Victrato. Both the treatments had the base insecticide fungicide package, but the Victrato gave a yield increase that was significant 5 out of the 9 site years. So 56% of the time there was a significant yield increase with Victrato, and that yield increase was a little over 5 bushel. So moving on to soybean sudden death syndrome and how effective Victrato is against some others. This is some lab, it's a good visual, some lab information with Petri dishes here where it's looking at Victrato versus Alevo on the pathogen causing soybean sudden death syndrome, the Fusarium pathogen. So you can see by the Petri plates in the top row, there's not a lot of growth on the pathogen in the Petri plates at these lower use rates compared to Alevo. So this is just showing how effective Victrato is compared to Alevo on soybean sudden death syndrome. This does translate to the field. Here, this is Victrato against Saltro field trials in moderate to heavy SDS pressure. About almost 90% of the time seeing a yield advantage close to 3 bushel here. So again, this is Victrato versus Saltro. Keep that in mind as I transition to the next slide. Similar win percentage here, 91% compared as we looked at with the last slide, but this is Victrato versus Alevo. But we're seeing a more significant yield advantage of Victrato compared to Alevo, which is showing about a 4.8 bushel advantage here. And remember back to the Victrato versus the Saltro, Victrato was about 2.8 bushel advantage over the Saltro. So even more significant advantages over Alevo, and yet significant advantages over Saltro as well when we're using Victrato in SDS pressure. Okay, this is a nice visual out of University of Minnesota from 2020. Aerial shot overhead of the field trial here on the right side of the screen. That may be a little bit hard to pick up on your screen, but the Cruiser Max APX base, so this is insecticide fungicide base, given about 64 bushel. And then when you go to the Victrato from that, there's a 17 bushel advantage here in SDS area, SDS pressure area. So significant difference there when we look at it compared to, when we look at Victrato compared to Saltro in this trial, giving us about a 2 bushel advantage there. Nice picture here out of Kansas and some known sudden death syndrome pressure area in a trial. Victrato on the left, Illevo on the right. The picture on the right with Illevo shows us there's a little bit more of the interveinal chlorosis, yellowing, and necrosis, browning from sudden death syndrome in the soybeans in early September. Victrato on the left providing more green tissue for a longer amount of time, which would translate to a bigger extended grain fill period compared to getting SDS infection earlier, so which would hopefully lead to bigger beans, bigger bean size, and higher yielding. Okay, transitioning to red crown rot here. So again, I just want to make sure I mention this one more time that we've probably pigeonholed Victrato, especially in Illinois. We've probably pigeonholed Victrato as being something that only people should look at using if they're in a known red crown rot area or if we think we have red crown rot. But in fact, that's not quite the case. We probably need to be giving more consideration to it being a premium superior product, not only in red crown rot areas, but also in areas where we got SDS pressure and also soybean cyst nematode pressure. Let's look at red crown rot a little bit. A lot of information here on red crown rot. We're learning still on this disease. We've got some hypothesis, but this is the distribution map. So the counties in green, those were colored in. This is accessible on the Crop Protection Network. Those are counties where we've had reported cases and positive identification of red crown rot on soybeans in the past. So you can see the epicenter there in 2018 in west central Illinois, Pike County, with that red circle with no center to it, showing the advancement of this disease mainly in a eastward progression pattern. And the theory behind that is at harvest time, we believe that this could be a major source of distribution of the fungus is harvesting and wind-blown debris in the fall, moving to other fields. So that's still some hypothesis there, but this, if you're in this path of those two red arrows, this is something to make sure you pay attention to. A newer disease in the Midwest. It's something we should not ignore. Some may take a progressive approach here in managing red crown rot, but unfortunately there may be some growers that if they don't think they have it in their field, they might just say, well, I'm going to ignore it until I know I've got it in my field and I see significant yield reduction. Again, some Petri plates on red crown rot activity in the lab with the pathogen on these plates on the auger. This is comparing Illevo to Saltro and then also Victrato. And the visual here is to see how much more effective Victrato is compared to Illevo, and it's a little bit better than Saltro as well. And this really does translate into the field. I would say in the field, we see this difference even more pronounced when you compare Victrato to Saltro in the field in known red crown rot areas. So here's Janelle in the field in 2024 in a known red crown rot area. Hamlet, Illinois, that is about roughly in between St. Louis, Missouri and Springfield, Illinois. It's about 15 miles south of the farm where I grew up on in Litchfield. So this is something that kind of hits home for me because it's close to our family farm and has been affecting yields on our family farm as well. See on the left of that picture, this is with Saltro, and on the right is the check without Saltro. Both of these treatments did have the base package fungicide insecticide, but you can see there the beans on the left staying greener longer and a little bit healthier, taller plant to them. Again, this is with Saltro, so this does provide a little bit of protection against red crown rot, but not nearly to the level that Victrato does. So here you can see on the right side of the screen is the check or the base with Victrato at the labeled rate. The check's in the middle, so no Victrato in the middle. The picture on the left, the plot on the left is Victrato added to the base at a 2x rate. So if you really want to concentrate here on what is according to the label right now, it'd be the picture on the right. But you can tell in this picture that the beans on the right did not senesce nearly as fast as the beans in the middle that had red crown rot and just the base fungicide insecticide package. Okay, these are pictures that I took in 2025. Prior to 2025, I probably fell into that bucket of field agronomists and others that maybe have been misdiagnosing red crown rot for brown stem rot or even sudden death. I'd say sudden death syndrome was probably the disease that I was calling this because I hadn't been looking at the base of the stem prior to this year. So after some reports from customers and some dealers in a couple different areas, I made some field visits in early August. And as you see the leaves on the left, the leaf on the left is showing that interveinal chlorosis or yellowing and necrosis browning. That would indicate something you'd think might look like sudden death syndrome. And then you dig a little bit farther, look a little bit farther into those fields and dig up some plants, look a little lower on the plant, split some stems. You find this red coloring near the base of the stem at the soil line. And it might be hard to see in this picture, but the reddening on the base of the stem, and there's circular fruiting bodies that often appear, and that's a positive identification for red crown rot. The center picture here is the one that's turned upside down. I took that because it's a good picture that shows that white mycelial growth that's often associated with red crown rot. So most of my samples this year I submitted to the University of Illinois Plant Clinic for positive identification, and this next field that I show you was positively identified for red crown rot and sudden death syndrome. So you can see from this aerial shot that the area that's affected here, again, this is August 21st, pretty significant here. And if you kind of look in there, there's not a really good pattern. If you look off to the left a little bit, there's a little bit of an area there. You can't quite see it in this picture, but up to the upper left in the picture, there's another area that's starting to show some symptoms. When you walk out in this field to those areas, you see things that look like sudden death syndrome. If you take this to yield, again, this was 2025 harvest data, yield map on the right, and this is of the entire red outlined field there on the screen. But if you look down at the bottom center of that yield map, you'll see an area of red. And also to the left of that, you'll see an area of green. And that matches up really well with where we saw the symptomology in the field. When we took this data, or took this field to yield, we saw about a 23 bushel difference where we had sudden death and red crown rot. It was about 23 bushel less than the area just adjacent to it where we weren't noticing red crown rot or sudden death symptoms on the soybeans in mid-August. So it can be a very damaging pest, red crown rot can. So again, here's the known red crown rot field in Hamel, Illinois. So we got Saltro on the left with the check on the right. So no Saltro or Victrato on the right, just the base fungicide insecticide package in both treatments here. The Saltro on the left, the leaves are staying greener longer, most likely leading to higher yields via the bigger soybean seed there with the treatment on the left with Saltro. So Saltro does have some activity, a little bit of suppression on red crown rot. Here's another picture of the check versus Saltro. Here's Saltro's on the right. Plant's staying greener longer, but it's not bulletproof. And the Saltro, it's not bulletproof, just like Victrato. Victrato's not bulletproof. We're not telling customers that just because you're planting soybeans with either Victrato or Saltro that you can't get sudden death or red crown rot. You can. It's mainly a delay. You need to think of this as mainly a delay as far as management of the pests. Now let's look at Victrato in that same location. Here's Victrato in the center. These plots were extremely easy to pick out from a distance far away. The check on the left, the check on the right, Victrato in the middle, just beautiful green beans in the middle of that field. And so all these treatments look like this. You could really pick out the Victrato. And here's Victrato on the right, the base package on the left, major difference there. A little bit more data. This is Syngenta data from known red crown rot areas. This is actually coming out of Illinois and Kentucky. I believe some of this was university trials, but this is 2024 and 2025. The base package of fungicide insecticide on the left there, 46.1 bushel. And then compared to adding Saltro to that base package or adding Victrato to that base package or adding others like Alivo or Ceramax to that base package. So the summary here is that, when we look at the Victrato in known red crown rot areas, it's not only providing a visual difference, it's providing a yield enhancement because protecting against red crown rot fungal a lot longer period during that grain fill in the month of August. So we really feel like the red crown rot piece is a multifaceted approach, or a three-legged stool we'd call it, where we would select a variety. If we've going into fields in 2026, planted the soybeans that have known red crown rot pressure, we definitely want to take a look at trying to select a variety with above average red crown rot rating. Now in 2025, Beck's set out some field trials at a couple different locations to evaluate variety differences or variety tolerances to red crown rot. And although we were able to get some good separation of varieties, we're still a little bit conservative on providing everyone with that information because we're not quite sure at this point how repeatable that will be in future years. So in other words, if we saw a variety hold off red crown rot really well in 2025, does that mean it's going to be a good variety next year in 2026 in known red crown rot environments? We're not quite sure if that's going to be the case. So number 2 there is really where I would recommend we start off with, is using the best seed treatment that's out there that has really good activity on red crown rot. And today that's Victrato. So if we can escalate with Victrato on varieties that are really good with red crown rot, then we're going to have a nice approach to managing red crown rot, but also managing those other pests we talk about, soybean sudden death syndrome and soybean cyst nematode. The third management approach on that three-legged stool is going to be reducing additional stresses on the plant, so things like poor drainage, low fertility, those are a couple examples. We just need to make sure we reduce the stresses on the plants as the growing season progresses as much to our ability. Okay, last thing here on foliar disease suppression, a little bit different. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this is in Louisiana with known frog eye leaf spot. And so we do have a little bit of frog eye leaf spot that does show up in the southern part of the territory I cover in Illinois. It's not an annual thing. if we get the right conditions, we tend to see a little bit, but not a lot. You can see here that in a known frog eye leaf spot area, Victrato does provide about a 2.5 bushel advantage over the base fungicide insecticide package. So that's pretty interesting, and this is something we'll keep an eye on. So in summary here of Victrato, in soybean cyst nematode fields and research trials, over 9 trials, Victrato has provided about a 2 bushel advantage over Saltro. In known sudden death syndrome areas, you see we've got some single trials there out of Minnesota and Kentucky. Victrato's showing some nice advantages over Saltro, and also more so over the Czech. Known red crown rot areas, Victrato providing about a 6 bushel advantage over Saltro and about a 15 bushel advantage over the Czech. So it doesn't take a lot to pay for this additional treatment of Victrato compared to Saltro. And when you look at it over the base, it does provide a nice opportunity for additional return on investment. So in summary here, we think the Victrato being a piece in our offerings for 2026 and possibly beyond is really that heavy pressure specialist. And again, not thinking of it in just red crown rot areas, but also in areas where we've got cyst nematode and other species of nematodes, as well as sudden death syndrome. When you think about competitive packages in the marketplace for soybean seed treatment, Beck's and you are positioned to have the best, most robust package for your customers, for customer success. When you look at the Victrato with Nemasect and Chitosan, that's the most robust nematode package on the market today. You know, we're the only company that we know of that's putting in a nematicide standard on all of our soybeans. So that Nemasect component is in there, even on our base Escalate treatment. You think about SDS, again, most robust SDS package on the market when you combine Victrato with Heads Up, thiabendazole, and the vegetal protein hydrolysate product. Again, red crown rot, Victrato, and Amplitude together, that's going to be the most robust red crown rot package on the market. A lot of people will not be using that Amplitude product in there, which is the Bacillus strains, to help out fighting off some of the pathogens that are in the soil. Just to wrap up here, this is a summary slide showing the prices per unit for these optional upgrade treatments of Saltro and Victrato. And just a $5 increase on the Victrato option over the Saltro option. Again, this is prior to any cash discount, so subtract your applicable discount here for a cash discount period that the grower, the customer would pay into. Again, just I think we're set to really separate ourselves here with the Victrato piece in the marketplace and provide our customers with an opportunity, like I said in the previous, for additional return on investment. You know, there is a little bit of spend money to make money here. And I know with current economic environment and agriculture and production, nobody wants to think about spending more money, but I think this is a good case of if we spend just a little bit more, we can definitely see a big return on investment. That's the opportunity that we have here for our customers and helping our farmers succeed. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, your local seed advisor, and we would be happy to help you. Thank you very much.